I'm the unseen Thundercat that wasn't in most of the episodes.
That's funny.
And I'll let the guys and Miss Joanne introduce themselves.
I am Peter Newman. I was the voice of Tiger and Wily Cat and Monkeyan and who else was I? Bengali, Palmyra. I was Palmyra. I'm sorry. No, I wasn't Palmyra. Sorry.
Okay, I'm Jerry Ann Raphael, and I was Palmyra. I also was Chilla, who breathed blue breath on everybody. And somebody named Jagara also. Yeah, that's right.
I'm Seth MacFarlane. I'm Larry Kenny, and I was the voice of Jackalman and Safari Joe
In Palmyra.
and Rataro
I think he was Palmyra.
and another one, Lion-O. And I guess we're going to have question and answer.
Yep, this is basically a question and answer
Oh, so
session.
it's a Q&A?
Yeah, where you guys can just ask anything you want,
I think we
and
should-
I was hoping it would be a TNA, but
I think we should run this like a presidential press conference.
they lie about everything?
Everybody shout out the questions. We'll ignore them and say whatever the heck we want. So I think that's it. No.
that sounds
Do
good.
that.
I think that first, though, before we do that, I think
Should introduce our moderator, Trick Treat.
Trick Treat. Yeah. He was a Thundercat too. We just didn't have very many lines. Snort. But why don't you guys do a couple voices for us before you start answering it?
How much money do you have?
Let's pull some money together.
This is what we do for a living. We talk for food.
That's right.
I used to carry a business card that said Larry Kenny, vocal prostitute.
I happen to know there is a fellow out there with a lunchbox, I think. There was a guy out there before with a lunchbox. I don't know if he's here, but I was wondering maybe he still had a Twinkie from 1985, which would still be good. No, okay, no Twinkies. All right.
So at the end of the question, I guess Trick will come over with the microphone, right?
Voices!
Oh, boy.
Voices first.
Ladies first.
Well, as you can see, I've lost the words. Chilla was really the most interesting thing in terms of the voice because Chilla had to make this sound of breathing through breath. So it was, and then lots of words. When you do that, you go, and then you try and talk, you don't have anything left. So what I used to do was to go, and then I had lots of voice, and then I could say whatever I wanted because I had gobs of air left.
She was never allowed to have liver before. But,
Oh, Palmyra was noble, so she just sort of sounded like this, and was very, straightforward and a good warrior. That's Palmyra.
Well, of course, the star of the show is evidenced by my T-shirt here. The show is Tiger and his friends.
so pathetic. Isn't he pathetic?
And Tiger being the star. So you look at the picture of Lionel there. What is he so angry about? That's what we're talking about. All right. What about me? Wily Cat, chill. And let's see, who else? Monkey. Because it's really the Monkey show.
I don't remember what I did as Jaguara, but I just thought I do a lot of children's voices too, and so you might enjoy this. A tiny step forward in man's quest for flavor.
Oh my God, yeah! She still got it.
Well, it was Bengali also. Wow.
Woo!
I think they scared themselves.
I remember doing Safari Joe, something like this.
Yes.
And I forget what Rataro sounded like. We each did, of course, one Thundercat and one Mutant, one main Mutant. And then, of course, some people don't realize, but there are only five or six of us at any one time in the cast. And we ended up each doing hundreds of voices. In 130 episodes of Thundercats. We did 65 episodes of Silverhawks. We did, I think, 65 episodes of Tiger Sharks. And then, most of us, the same cast, we did several animated holiday specials for Rankin and Bass, like Star of Jeremy, Life and Adventures of Santa Claus.
And Karate Cat. That was
Karate
Cat.
Street Frogs.
Yeah.
We did a lot of work together for
Camp Minimum.
Camp.
Camp Minimum.
That's
A
right.
little miniature.
You were Big Mama in Karate Cat.
Oh yeah, Karate Cat was Big Mama. And I was Big Mama.
And I was Boom Boom Burmese. Look out, Karate, Big Mama's coming.
And then, of course, I did another voice on Thundercats that sounded like this. Sort of omens come to my hand. I, Lion-O, command it. Thundercats. Oh! Oh!
Oh, he's so talented. I'm so glad I came today.
You shut up, Peter.
All right, now, Joe, take it easy over there, Joe. Get the folks all excited.
Shall we go to questions? Or how about switch it up a little bit? Every Comic-Con, Expo, and RetroCon, the stupid guests have to come up with answers. How about if we ask questions and they have to answer them?
I think that's a great idea.
You better go ahead and ask the question. Who has a question?
Hi there. Thanks for coming out. This is just a real treat.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I wanted to know, what was it like to work with Earl Hammond, Mumro, one of my favorite characters? I read a book on Thundercats and I understand when he would do his famous line there, he would be spitting all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
Is that true? If you could talk a little bit about that, that would be awesome.
Well, he did spit.
He did spit a lot.
And the funny
Yeah.
thing was, first of all, Earl was the sweetest guy in the world and the funniest the most talented. And the funny thing is, that when he was doing Mum Ra, he became Mum Ra in every sense of the word. You know how Mum Ra, as he transforms, there's drool and green drool coming out of his mouth. Well, Earl would, as he would start off slowly like, ancient spirits of evil, transform this day. Well, by that time
he was,
he would be spitting
started
out,
spitting
and he would actually go like this. Transform this decayed form into Mumra! He would open over the corner like plastic wrap, you know? Because it would just fly all over the room. But he was incredible.
And when he would do his transformation and we would go into the big laugh, fortunately, we didn't generally have any lines in response to that. He would be doing his thing. And it was good because most of the time I'd just be standing back with a big smile on my face watching him do this big build to this crazy laugh at which he would be, by the end of which he'd be red and exhausted and he'd just sort of collapse, theatrically afterwards. And I would no longer be a Thundercat acting, I'd just be an admiring fan of his by the time he finished it.
I always felt sorry for him because most of the time, due to the nature of our work, you do an incredible performance, and then the director says, that's great. One more time. And Earl would just be totally spent.
Yeah.
Literally. And sometimes he would have to take more water, so he could spit it in. But he would go, "It's over up, great Earl. Let's do it again. Poor guy. Yeah. And somebody asked me last couple weeks ago in Tampa at a Comic-Con. They didn't really ask the question. They said, I don't imagine you had to say Thundercats Ho every time. I said, yeah. I must have said Thundercats Ho a million times in those 130 episodes.
That's true.
Because
there would be someone
you have to, anytime you record something in a studio, even if it's the same line you said a million times before, they always have to record it again because rooms vary. Even the same room will vary from day to day in ambiance and sound. The microphones themselves can sound a little bit different from day to day.
And they always want a safety, right? They always want a safety. Oh, that's good. Now let's just do one for a safety. In case, for any reason, electronic or what have you, so they have to do it again. So yes, in each episode, that at some point, we all in unison do the thunder, Thundercats. So, you know, so,
I've heard that there's something of a blooper reel going around of instances where you guys would, mess up a line and then get really frustrated and start cursing about it. Is that real or?
Oh yeah, you've all heard the outtakes, haven't you? And you're the only one that has heard the outtakes?
I've heard of them. I didn't know that where to find them.
Has everybody else heard the outtakes? Who has not ever heard the outtakes? Have you never heard them?
No.
Still,
I could run my CD in, but it would be I would say that was an R rating, maybe PG-13. If I was going to, I have a whole CD of it.
I'll look for them harder.
well, I want to say, in my own defense, that at the time when we were doing the show, and everybody made mistakes, we were all, flub lines or start speaking the wrong character's voice, I made the very conscious decision not to curse, because even though it wasn't about the internet then, and the recordings were being done on reel-to-reel tape, it wasn't digital recording, I still had the feeling you never know where this stuff is going to show up. And boy, was I right. So,
well, for those of you who haven't heard them, for those of you who have heard them, you know that there are some expletives included. And I don't want to be inappropriate. There are children here, maybe not in this room, but there are children here. So I was thinking about playing them off of YouTube for you, but most of you heard it anyway. If you haven't, Google, or just go to YouTube and type in Thundercats outtakes, or Thundercats bloopers, or whatever. Some of them we can reconstruct here. There's one simply where I went, thunder, thud! Started too high. It's about the only clean one, I think.
Yeah, I have a CD of it too, but it's
most of them are.
It's censored.
There's one about a samoflange. you know what I'm talking about. But if you haven't heard them, just go to YouTube and type in Thundercats. There are also Silverhawks outtakes.
Yeah, and I was pointing out that there's a few Tiger Shark ones out there too.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you see, anytime you have a group of actors, either in a recording studio or on stage, or, well, not so much on stage live, but on a movie set or whatever, and somebody fluffs a line or makes a joke or something, then you're going to have people topping that joke and responding to them, what we call outtakes, because they're going to be edited out of the final product. Well, back in the 80s when we were recording this, there was no such thing as an internet, a World Wide Web. So when that did happen in the recording session, we knew nobody else was ever going to hear that except those of us in the room, and maybe the people attending the recording engineer's next Christmas party, because I'm sure recording engineers kept those things. When they spliced them out, they kept them on a separate reel, and I can just imagine a recording engineer saying at a party, hey, you guys want to hear what the Thundercats guess what it really sounds like when we're recording, and they would play them for me. Well, 30 years later, one day my son comes in and says, "Hey Dad, listen to this, I found this on the internet." I went, "Oh God, no!" I really was shocked and I was worried because I said to my son, I don't want those kids, our fans, to hear that. And my son said, "Dad, those kids are 30 years old. They're going to love this." And he was right.
Was there ever any interest or opportunity in writing an episode of Thundercats?
Not me.
No, I was so happy to be doing that work, to have gotten that job, you know, creating the voices, and I don't even think I had an inkling. When they sent the script, I read the script, and I think Larry was the one who came up with this way. You read the script, you look at it, my lines, bullshit, my lines. And I was so happy to get a hold of the script and read through it and say, "Oh yeah, I'm in this one too, you know, I'm in this episode, I'm in that episode."
Sometimes if there was a new character, we'd all audition for it in the room at the same time. I can remember that. Boy, you know, men, women, it didn't really matter. And somehow that would happen as well, and that was kind of fun. Because there we all were. All right, I'll take a crack at it.
And it was friendly competition too, because we already had the job.
We already were in it.
You weren't
so
going to get paid extra for how many voices you did, so, yeah. I forgot what I was going to say now.
We were asking about writing it.
Oh, yes.
I never had any interest in doing that. I was just, as Peter said, very happy to do whatever voice came up.
I can't think of too many people in our business that I know who are both writers and performers. It seems to be, I have a talent for one, you have a talent for another. I guess Seth MacFarlane is a big exception to that one. And there are of course people who do both, but from my experience, there aren't too many people who do both. They are both distinct talents, and when you get to that level where you're producing network television quality things, you want the best people you can have in each position. So it's very rare to have somebody do both, I think.
It was interesting, I don't know if it was in a comic strip, maybe, one of those later cartoons, a fellow named Jim Mesker, who was an artist as well. It turns out he's the son of the actress Marilyn Ross from Happy Days, the mom from Happy Days. Her son, Jim Meskerman, talented artist and actor as well. And he came in and did some voices. He had also participated in helping to design some of the characters that we did, you know, as part of the series. So there you had kind of a mix of them, you know. And he was very talented voice guy. He's an actor. He still is working out. I think he's out in LA. Has been for years. So there was one time where they had some of that mixing. But he, as far as I know, he didn't do any writing.
Any more questions?
How did you folks get started doing voices? Both characters and anything you did?
Well, I started when I was 4 years old on a radio program called Let's Pretend. My father was a concert pianist with the CBS Symphony, and he played the Celeste on that. And the commercial was, "Green Margarita so good to me, yes we have it every day." Anyway, and so I started at 4 doing radio, and proceeded from there to do a lot of radio, and had a gift for changing my voice and doing accents. I do a lot of accents, and the main one I do. That's how I started.
I started my career as a disc jockey on the radio when I was 15 in Illinois, Peoria, Illinois, and I would play the Beatles records and the commercials, and I would do little funny voices, because I'd always been a class clown, believe it or not. Yes, right. I had so many times over the years, I had teachers and school principals and various law enforcement officials who would say to me, you know, Larry, I hope when you grow up that you find a way to make a living with your little voices and your jokes. And I did. But that's when I started as a disc jockey, and I would do those, you know, new cartoon type voices and impressions of people on my show, and then that led to people in the advertising business hearing me and asking me to do one commercials. And then one day, when I got to New York as a disc jockey, I'm still a disc jockey, my agent called and said they're auditioning for this new animated series called Thundercats. So that's it all led up to that.
I've got to ask.
Peter has a very interesting entry. See, that's mine. Not that mine wasn't fascinating, but Peter has an entry.
Well, I did have a love relationship with both.
Actually, I started my career as a kid, as being a smart aleck kid, imitating some of my European relatives, the way they spoke, to the point that one aunt wouldn't speak to me for months at a time. And that's true. I just, as a kid, I loved doing voices and accents and all kinds of silly stuff. And then much later, after I had already, been working and having a serious grown-up life, somebody much smarter than myself said that, those voices and things that you've been doing all your life, there's a business, there's a career out there if you're interested. And at the time, my dear mother was working as a bookkeeper in a talent agency. And so she introduced me to those people, and they helped me put together what was called the demo reel, which at the time was on reel-to-reel tape. Went round and round, and and then that agent, when I had something to show for it, sent me to another agent. They started sending me out on auditions. They felt that there was enough potential that they'd be willing to work with me. And the way I described the story, I did in fact go and book the first audition that I did. And it was like, I think the fishing analogy was like the gods of commercials, casting out. I bit the hook, and they reeled me in because I thought, wow, this is going to be easy, and this is exactly what I should be doing. And then it took the years that it took to learn the business, learn the trade. But it was too late by then. I was hooked literally and figuratively, and that's how it started. And I've been doing it ever since.
Your turn.
I'm waiting to know. I don't interrupt. What was your all?
And then I was going to say that.
Listen to him.
I'm sorry.
From each of you, what is your all-time dearest memory? Like something that will just never leave your heart and you're so cherished forever of all of you being together?
It's a tough question.
In the business of doing voiceovers and doing commercials and voices and so forth, they are single entities. You go in, you get the script, you do it, you're out, finished. The thing about Thundercats that was so marvelous for me was that we were a company and we really liked each other, and we would be in a studio from like the whole day, and they'd buy you lunch and you'd be in there, and we were all together, and it was a cast, and that is very rare in this business that we do, and that is my fondest memory of the camaraderie and the friendship of doing that while making very good money.
Yes.
So the combination was terrific.
So you built a family.
Exactly.
So that's what I often say. We became like a family because we did, as I said, all these shows together, same cast. And then, in my case, Bob McFadden, who played Snarf on Thundercats, was also the voice for many, many years of Frankenberry cereal. And I have been the voice of Count Chocula for 35 years. So back in those days, we often did one commercial with Count Chocula, Frankenberry, and Blueberry. We called it the Monster Sessions. So Bob and I worked even more than the rest of us all worked. But I always give the same answer that it's so rare in our family time, especially now, you work alone. You go into the studio, you're by yourself, and the other actors are maybe in Los Angeles, you know, with their headphones on. And I remember when they did the new Thundercats series in, was it 2010? And they asked me to play Claudius, Lionel's father, and they flew me out to Warner Brothers Ranch in Burbank. And I was so excited when I walked in and I saw the studio and I saw the 5 or 6 microphones in a semicircle, just the way we used to work. And I was standing around just chatting with the engineer and the director, waiting for the rest of the actors to get there, whom I hadn't met yet. And finally the director came in and said, "We better get started, you know." And I said, "Oh, they're not," she said, they're not working today. We're just working with you today." And I was so disappointed because I flew all the way to LA. Otherwise, why didn't they just have me stay in New York and do it, you know? But, so anyway, that's always my answer too, is that I don't have one moment. I don't have 2 or 3 moments that I can remember, except Earl doing that. But it was the whole experience of working together with this wonderful group of people, not just the actors. And as Jerry Ann said, we all became like, you mentioned, like a family, because we all really loved each other and respected each other. It was every actor on that show was a master of his craft. And the writers, of course we didn't work with the writers, but the engineers, Lee Donecker, who was the director who directed all of them. It was just the greatest group of people I've ever worked with in this business. And I've been in this business 51 years. And but remember, I was only 15 when I started, so I'm not that old.
And in line with what my cohorts have been saying, it really was about that. For the period that we did, the 2.5 or so years, 2.5 to 3 years, whenever we worked on those series, not only do we get to have so much fun together, but that when one of us would be doing a big scene like Earl with Mumra, Larry, Jacqueline, or any of the big characters, and we'd have a big scene, a big moment, we'd all do it, whatever it was. At the end of it, we'd stand and we'd applaud each other. When we just finished, we applaud each other. It's crazy, it was crazy fun, as they say. And recently I worked on the cartoon Archer, and it's just as I mean, I was here in New York, I went into a studio in New York, and talking to the director in Atlanta, and he would maybe read the line before, lead me in, as they say. I would do my lines, and that would be the process, skipping the pages that I was not on, and we finished the job, and it was easy. It took less time, but it wasn't that great communal experience that we had. So, that's really was the most incredible part. I mean, over those period of years, all those sessions, all those things, we all had fun, we all made silly mistakes, we would come out with the wrong character at some point, lots of that. That overriding experience was, this week, one day, maybe next week, or 2 weeks from now, for 2 days, we'd be back together again and doing this process, and as Jerry Ann said, getting paid very well for it.
And then there was always a section at the end where we would do the climbing up pole, grunting, or all the sound effects that were totally separate from doing the dialogue.
I think our voices.
All that.
Lee Donecker used to say, "I need you for a grunts and groans session or a news and odds."
There's a fine line to that.
One more time.
Have you kept the family bond with each other's families outside the show now that it's over? Have you kept the connection with each other's families?
No.
Not really. No, because we didn't.
No, it was our thing.
It wasn't
We
anything
don't have our families, but this was our Thundercats family. This was, and the people that we're close to, our children, our loved ones, whoever they are not really part of that.
Right.
They're periphery of it, and they're accepted, but it's not the same thing
And you have
as
to
the person
remember
you're working with.
Yeah,
Yes.
remember too, we really didn't like each other. So,
Can you talk about
Yes,
Who's got the microphone?
I've got the microphone.
Right here,
Brandon.
up front here.
Oh,
Brandon.
I'm sorry.
Brandon, never heard of him.
Can you talk about any specific influences or people that you perhaps tried to imitate in any of the voices that you came up with for the characters?
Imitated. Oh, well.
Imitations or any influences that you have?
For the Thundercats?
Oh, you
Well,
mean-
with Thundercats or you know, Count Chocula or anything, or Tiger Shark, Silverhawks, but specifically Thundercats.
I think the idea, where do we get the voices from? What
Yeah,
was the
what
source
was
of the
some of the
voices?
inspirations for some of the
Yeah,
voices?
yeah.
Well, for me, of course, the voices of the Thundercats themselves were human voices. They were basically our voices.
The
Dramatized, but
Yeah.
The noble characters.
the noble characters. But the mutants, for example, that where you had to do a quote cartoon voice. I remember when I auditioned for Jackalman. You're there in the audition lobby, and they're looking at they show you pictures of what the character looks like. They give you a one paragraph synopsis of the character. Is he evil? Is he what? And I remember thinking, well, jackals are, you think of them as wily and sly and kind of nasty. So I had that in my mind, and I remember, for some reason, a character popped into my mind from my childhood, a Snidely Whiplash from Rocky and Bull. You remember that?
Yeah.
Hello now. I'm going to tie you to the railroad track.
So I kept that in my mind, and that's where Jackalman's voice came from.
We must get the Thundercats, yeah?
That was my influence for that voice.
I would like to, in the place of Bob McFadden, who obviously can't speak for himself, but you know, such a great guy, such a great talent. He did the voice of Sly, one of the mutants, and he was reptilian, and so Bob, you know, reached for that of the snake, of the, you know, the hiss, and so.
Yes, a murder those Thundercats. Yes.
And so you know, that's some of it just came out of the nature of the character, and for myself, it reflects directly on Monkey. It's an ape-like bad guy, so we had to think of certainly it was going to make noises like that, and so the voice was going to have something of that quality to it, as I'm sure you all remember, don't you?
I think my inspiration for Safari Joe, as I recall, now that I think back on it, was I looked at the picture of him, and he had one of those Australian hats. Yeah, I don't know what they call those. One side,
I think they're called Australian hats.
one side is up, one side is kind of a
Dingo.
brim, you know,
The dingo hat.
which made me think of the Australian accent for Safari Joe, you know, and then big old boots on, you know, all that stuff. Knocking through the old, out in the outback, you know. Anybody else? What was your inspiration for the cat that was never seen?
Oh, gosh. I guess mine would have been my kitty cat.
Now, there you go.
Kitty cats.
It varies.
I'm already losing my voice, but I have to
It
say
varies from one. Who else has a question? Yes.
Near the latter third of Thundercats, it seemed like Myra and Tigra didn't get as much screen time. They were kind of left on third Earth while the others went back to their home planet. Do you remember if there was a reason for that? They wanted you to voice more of your other characters instead of your Thundercat characters, or were they trying to sell new toys or something?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of the question.
Was the reason they were seemed to be kind of left behind, not get as much screen time in the latter episodes with
Who
Myra and
didn't have
Tigra?
as much screen time?
Myra and Tigra?
Oh, I don't recall.
Tiger? I don't remember a character named Tiger.
You're saying that near the end of the series, they weren't on screen?
Yeah, they seemed to they weren't featured in episodes as much as they were.
I don't recall that. I really don't.
Okay.
You know, it's funny, sometimes the fan will ask something about the series like that, or even more specifically, Larry sometimes reflects on that. Oh, you remember in episode 26 where you had a line, but it seemed like Lionel's eyebrow went up and the other one. For me, other than certain specific episodes like Monkey and Taking Over the World, you know, and that, or The Cave of Time, you know, and there's something real specific about it. There's a general memory about the experience, about the whole thing as an entity. And it doesn't, I don't think in terms of a beginning or end so much as just, you know, and I haven't seen it in a long time. I don't remember a lot of the episodes specifically. And so, you know, you reference this, and believe me, it had nothing to do with us as actors, because we didn't write it. So it was all about whatever the writers were coming up with, and whether if they knew something about I guess they knew when the series was going to end after the 130th episode. So it was their design. So we showed up, said the lines, hopefully said the words in the right order, by the right character.
And you really don't remember
Yeah.
the episodes. And like you watch them, we do the work, done, finished, next.
For the
I mean,
most
it
part.
has that feel to it, so that's difficult.
It's just a pleasant, great memory with a lovely glow around it, you know, this perfect thing. But you guys know more about it than we do. And so we got paid, you didn't.
In other words, we don't know. We got time for maybe a couple more questions?
Yeah, just a quick question. What is the craziest thing a fan has had you sign?
What was that?
Oh, that's a good one.
The craziest item that a fan has had you sign as a figure.
A belly. But she asked me to sign something else.
Oh!
You were there, right? Remember
I
that?
was standing next to
A
you.
lovely young woman came up to me and asked me if I would sign her breast.
Why
One
not?
of her breasts. And I looked around and I said, well, I'm not a prude or anything. I would have no problem with that, but I said, this is a public venue and there are children, you know. And without hesitation, her husband came over and he said, we go out in the van.
Swingers!
That's what I was
Swingers!
thinking. That's what I was thinking. And I said, I'll tell you what, lift up your t-shirt and I'll sign your belly. And she said, okay.
There you go.
Nice belly. Actually, to be honest with you, when she first came up to me, she said, would you sign my breast? My first thought was, the poor thing only has one. I'll never know if she has one too.
Well, actually, yes. I had a similar experience. A woman came up and offered that that I could sign her breast, and my wife killed her. So
Nobody's ever asked me to sign.
It's tough.
I'll leave it blank.
No woman ever asked you to sign your breast?
And
Oh.
I don't know.
Oh, stop it.
I'll see you later in the van.
I think just
We have time for one more
no,
question.
just a tattoo. Someone asked me where to sign a tattoo, so that was.
They'll probably get your signature tattooed on top of that.
They do that
People
sometimes.
do
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a pretty cool
I just
thing.
wondered if they ever talked to you guys about characters or plot ideas for seasons of either any of the shows that they were going to continue before they. Okay.
No. No.
Our opinions were not asked for, which is as it should be. They hired professional writers, the best in the business. They don't need actors to tell them that, you know. It took a lot of pressure off of us. No.
We just do what was there in front of us and we take it the best we could.
There was not like a big think tank where all the writers and actors and everybody got, no. The writers do their job, we do our job. It works better that way.
That aspect, the performance aspect, is a very existential experience. You go, you get the script, you read the lines, you highlight, your part, you go, you read those, and you're in character, and then you leave. And then you're done with it. You have no authority over anything. You have no influence over anything. If you did something wrong, they'll call you back in. We need to do a fix on this, and then you leave again. And for what we did for that, you know, the voiceover world, that's what we do. That's how our lives work. We go in, we do what we're asked to do. Hopefully, we got the job, so hopefully we did it well. And then we leave and go on, to something else, whatever it is, lunch maybe. Lunch. It's just a good idea right now. That's true. It's that time. That's good.
Is there anybody that really wants to ask a question that hasn't had a chance to? But otherwise, it is lunchtime. Thank you all.
Thank you.
One more. Remember you telling somebody a story, came across two kids in the Toys R Us looking at action figures back in the 80s?
Oh, yeah. I remember that story. It usually comes up when people ask me, some people will ask, how did you guys know, when did you know that you had a hit series on your hands? And I said, for me, because you never know. I mean, for one thing, we began recording Thundercats months before it was on the air.
So we had no idea
No idea.
that its popularity would be as it turned out to
We
be.
saw that we had a good product. We could tell after a few shows, hey, this is a good show. And there was no way of knowing 30 years from now we'll be sitting around talking about it. But I guess for each of us, there was at some point where you said, wow, this show is really, for me I was at Toys R Us about 2 weeks before Christmas in 86 probably, 85 or 86. And my children were small, so I was at Toys R Us frequently. And the last time I had been there, I noticed these 3 rows. There was the Ninja Turtles, I think, and a He-Man, and the Thundercats. This day when I walked in, 3 rows of nothing but Thundercats on either side. I mean, all the way through the store. I mean, it was incredible. And I went, oh my God. I'm going to have to be talking about this show 30 years from now. And as I'm walking down the aisle, checking, there's 2 young boys, probably 9 and 7, and they're looking at the action figures. And I could hear the one boy say, I'm going to get Tiger. He's the coolest one. I thought, and the other kid says something like, I like Panthro. So I couldn't help myself. I went over and I said, why don't you get Lionel? He's the one who says Thundercats. Oh! And these kids looked at me like I was, well, their mothers had probably told them don't talk to people like this.
Oh, jeez.
So I just walked away and I got about 3 steps and I heard one of them say, he didn't even sound like Lion. And I thought, you little fart. If you only knew, you'd probably poop your pants. I've always, to this day, since I first told that story in an interview, I've hoped, I still hope that someday somebody in one of these crowds will say, I was one of those kids. I think one lady here had a question.
Yeah, Renee had a question. What?
I just wanted to know if any of your individual personalities were transmitted into any of the characters, or any of your alter egos. Were you able to bring out any characters?
Well, remember, we didn't create the characters in terms of, we didn't design the characters as such. But as an actor, creating the voice, whatever that character is, I think you add a little something. The way you give life to that character, give voice to that character, comes somewhat from who you are. Unless they give you such specific directions that there's no room for that. You know what I mean? There's no room for you to be. But when they said, as in the case of Monkey or the Demolisher, let's say the Demolisher, we just knew there was going to be a character in the script called the Demolisher when we had got scripts the day, week before, however long it was. And so then we have a chance to prepare because we know we're going to have to audition in the studio and see who gets to do the Demolisher. And so we come up with a character, and out of that process, it has to include some of who we are. How do we envision this kind of destructive, rampaging character? In that way, I would say so. But not in terms of, I want a character to be just like me. It's not that.
Shall we end this together?
Yes.
Thunder.
Thunder! Thunder!